The disbanding of troops. It is the same with people as it is with a man. If it wishes to give itself some gratification, it naturally considers whether it is worth what it costs. To a nation, security is the greatest of advantages. If in order to obtain it, it is necessary to have an army of 100,000 men, I have nothing to say against it. It is an enjoyment bought by a sacrifice. Let me not be misunderstood upon the extent of my position. A member of the Assembly proposes to disband 100,000 men for the sake of relieving the taxpayers of 100 million. If we confine ourselves to this answer, the 100 millions of men and those 100 millions of money are indispensable to a national security. It is a sacrifice, but without this sacrifice, a country would be torn by factions or invaded by some foreign power. There is nothing to object to this argument, which may be true or false in fact, but which theoretically contains nothing which militates against economy. The error begins when the sacrifice itself is said to be an advantage because it profits somebody. Now, I am very much mistaken if, the moment the author of the proposal has taken his seat, some orator will not rise and say, "Disband 100,000 men." Do you know what you are saying? What will become of them? Where will they get a living? Don't you know that work is scarce for everyone, that every field is overstocked? Would you turn them out of doors to increase competition and to weigh upon the rate of wages? Just now, when it is hard to live at all, it would be a pretty thing if the state must find bread for 100,000 individuals. Consider besides that the army consumes wine, arms, clothing. It promotes the activity of manufacturers in garrison towns, that it is in short the godsend of innumerable purveyors. Why, any one must tremble at the bare idea of doing away with this immense industrial movement. This discourse, it is evident, concludes by voting the maintenance of 100,000 soldiers for reasons drawn from the necessity of service and from economical considerations. It is these considerations only that I have to refute. 100,000 men costing the taxpayers 100 millions of money live and bring to the purveyors as much as 100 millions can supply, that which is seen. But 100 millions taken from the pockets of taxpayers cease to maintain these taxpayers and the purveyors as far as 100 millions reach. That is which is not seen. Now make your calculations, cast up and tell me what profit there is for the masses. I will tell you where the loss lies, and to simplify it, instead of speaking of 100,000 men and 1 million of money, it shall be of 1 man and 1,000 francs. We will suppose that we were in village A. The recruiting sergeants go their round, they take off a man. The tax gatherers go their round and take off 1,000 francs. The man and the sum of the money are taken to Metz, and the latter is destined to support the former for a year without doing anything. If you order Metz only, you are quite right. The measure is a very dangerous one. But if you look towards the village of A, you will judge very differently. For unless you are blind indeed, you will see that the village has lost a worker. And the village has lost 1,000 francs, which would remunerate this labor, as well as the activity which, by the expenditure of those surrounding 1,000 francs, it would spend around it. At first sight, there would seem to be some compensation. We took place in the village, now takes place at Metz, that is all. But the loss is to be estimated in this way. At the village, a man dug and worked. He was a worker. At Metz, he turns to the right about and to the left about. He is a soldier. The money and the circulation are the same in both cases, but in the one, there were 300 days of productive labor. In the other, there are 300 days of unproductive labor, supposing, of course, that a part of the army is not indispensable to the public safety. Now suppose the disbanding to take place. You tell me that there will be a surplus of 100,000 soldiers, 100,000 workers, that competition will be stimulated and it will reduce the rate of wages. This is what you see. But what you do not see is this. You do not see that to dismiss 100,000 soldiers is not to do away with $1 million of money, but to return it actually to the taxpayer. You do not see that to throw 100,000 workers on the market is to throw into it at the same moment the 100 millions of money needed to pay for their labor. That, consequently, the same act which increases the supply of hands increases also the supply of demand, from which it follows that your fear of reduction of wages is unfounded. You do not see that before the disbanding, as well as after it, therein lie a country, 100 millions of money corresponding with 100,000 men. That the whole difference consists in this. Before the disbanding, the country gave 100 millions to the 100,000 men for doing nothing, and that after it, it pays them the same sum, but for productive labor. You do not see, in short, that when a taxpayer gives his money either to a soldier in exchange for nothing or to a worker in exchange for something, all the ultimate consequences of the circulation of this money are the same in the two cases. Only in the second case, the taxpayer actually receives something for his or her money. In the former, he receives nothing. The result is a dead loss to the nation. The Sophism which I here am combating will not stand the test of progression, which is the touchstone of principles. If when every compensation is made and all interests satisfied, there is a national profit in increasing the army, why not enroll under its banners the entire male population of the country? This one has relevance today in understanding that the taxpayer is the one who pays. So if we have the government, so if we look at the government as being, in this particular case, the military, if that military sits idle, it has cost a village, a country, a person who would have been productive, providing something to its country, to its village, or to their community. And the cost is no less or no greater. Taking $1 million, 1,000 francs, however much it is, out and giving it to the government for something non-productive is actually more harmful than leaving it with the taxpayer to then decide on the labor that's most needed and paying that labor for something that which is productive. Again, that which is seen versus that which is not seen.